Is living close to your children in old age truly the key to happiness? Or could it quietly become the seed of your deepest suffering? Picture this. You've spent decades working hard, raising a family, sacrificing your youth and energy so your children could flourish. Now the years have slowed you down, your body grows weary, and your heart longs for comfort. Naturally, the mind whispers, if I live close to my children, I will never feel alone. They will care for me, and my old age will be peaceful. It sounds logical, even heartwarming. Yet the Buddha once taught, attachment is the root of suffering. What if this dream of closeness, instead of bringing joy, could awaken disappointment, bitterness, or even a loneliness sharper than solitude itself? Zen stories often begin not with answers, but with questions. Let me share one with you. Imagine an old man who, after years of solitude, decided to move closer to his children. His heart swelled with hope. Visions of grandchildren's laughter, family dinners, warm embraces. At first, everything felt perfect, as if life was giving him back the love he had poured out for so long. But beneath this sweetness, a hidden question pulsed. Was this true happiness or only an illusion? Think of your own life for a moment. Have you ever pinned your hopes for peace on someone else's presence? Your partner, your children, or even your friends? Only to feel restless when they could not meet your expectations? This is the delicate line between love and attachment. Love flows freely, but attachment ties our peace to another's actions. The Zen way does not deny the beauty of family bonds, but it asks us to look deeper. Are we seeking genuine connection, or are we clinging to an idea of what others should give us? The difference may be invisible at first, but in time, it shapes the entire experience of aging. So as we begin this journey, let us pause with one powerful question. Is the greatest mistake of old age not where we live, but how we live, chained by expectations or freed by inner peace? To explore this, we will walk through a Zen story that unravels the hidden truths of closeness, attachment, and the surprising path to true contentment. And so, we come to the first part of our journey in today's video, the longing for closeness in old age. After a lifetime of hard work, raising children, and carrying the weight of responsibility, many elders find themselves surrounded not by noise and laughter, but by silence. The house that once echoed with footsteps and conversations slowly empties, and with it, the heart begins to feel the ache of loneliness. In this quiet stage of life, a natural thought arises. If I live close to my children, I will no longer feel empty. They will care for me, and my days will be filled with warmth again. This desire is deeply human. After giving everything to a family, it feels only fair to hope for comfort in return. The mind whispers that proximity to children will solve the burden of solitude. And indeed, at first, this choice often feels right. When parents move near their children, they are welcomed warmly. Grandchildren run to greet them. The promise of family dinners glows brightly, and the elders feel the sweetness of being needed once more. There is comfort in those early days, a gentle reassurance that they made the right decision. But beneath this initial happiness lies a subtle question. Is this closeness truly the path to peace, or is it only the beginning of another illusion? From the perspective of Zen, longing for closeness is not wrong. It is part of being human. Yet if we are not mindful, this longing transforms into attachment. We begin to believe that our children must fulfill our need for love, as though our happiness depends on them. In the language of the Buddha, this is clinging to a condition outside ourselves. And clinging, even when it looks like love, becomes the seed of suffering. Consider how often we have all done this in our own lives, not just in old age, but at every stage, expecting a spouse to complete us, a friend to save us from loneliness, a child to give us purpose. At first it feels joyful, someone to lean on, someone to answer our need. But in time the joy becomes fragile, because it rests on something we cannot control, the actions and attention of others. Zen wisdom invites us to pause here. The desire for closeness can be honored, but must not be mistaken for the source of peace. Proximity does not guarantee intimacy. Living near our children may place us in the same neighborhood, but it cannot place us inside their lives. They too have their responsibilities, their paths to walk, their own lessons to learn. To expect them to carry the weight of our emotional emptiness is to hand them a burden they did not create. The beauty of this moment in life is not in denying the longing, but in observing it with compassion. Yes, we all want to be close, to feel loved, to know we are not forgotten. But the real question is, do we seek closeness to share love or to demand love? One leads to freedom, the other to disappointment. Zen teachers often remind us that life in old age is like sitting by a river. The water that once rushed with energy now flows slowly and quietly. We can either sit waiting for others to bring us joy, or we can learn to see the beauty in the river itself, the sound, the reflection, the calmness of its flow. Children, like water, come and go. Their presence can be a gift, but the river of peace must be found within our own heart. So in this first step of our journey, let us recognize the longing for closeness as natural but also fragile. It can bring temporary warmth, yes, but if we cling to it as the source of happiness, we plant the seed of suffering. True closeness, the kind that heals the heart, does not come simply from living near others. It comes from living near our own awakened self, present, mindful, and free. And so, flowing from the first reflection on the longing for closeness, we now come to the next part of today's journey, the illusion of lasting happiness. At first, living close to children often feels like a dream fulfilled. There is warmth in the smiles, comfort in the greetings, and reassurance in being surrounded once again by family life. Yet Zen reminds us that joy rooted in external conditions is like a flower placed in a fragile vase. It looks beautiful, but it cannot endure. After a few months, reality begins to reveal itself. Children, once eager to spend time, are pulled into the currents of their own responsibilities. Careers demand their focus, households require their attention, and slowly their visits become less frequent. The grandchildren who once ran joyfully to greet elders discover their own worlds: school, friends, technology, and their innocent enthusiasm is replaced by new distractions. What once seemed like a promise of constant companionship quietly shifts into a rhythm of waiting, of longing, of feeling left behind. Here lies the subtle pain. Though physically close, the heart begins to feel distant. The elder realizes they are not woven into the daily pattern of their children's lives, but instead orbiting on the edge. And in that quiet realization, loneliness deepens. Buddhism teaches that this suffering arises not from the absence of love, but from the presence of expectation. When we tie happiness to the frequency of visits, the length of conversations, or the attention given, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The Buddha's words echo here. Attachment is the root of suffering. To expect permanence from what is impermanent is to plant seeds of sorrow. This is not only a lesson for old age. Each of us has experienced moments when happiness seems certain, perhaps in a new relationship, a promotion, or a long-awaited recognition, only to find that the joy faded more quickly than expected. Zen calls this the illusion of lasting happiness, the mistaken belief that external gains can fill the inner void permanently. So what is the invitation in this moment of realization? It is to see clearly that joy built on conditions outside ourselves is fragile. Living close to children can bring moments of joy, yes, but those moments must be embraced as passing gifts, not relied upon as a permanent source of peace. In Zen imagery, it is like the moon reflected in water, beautiful to behold but untouchable. If we try to hold it, the water ripples and the image disappears. The wisdom lies not in clinging to the reflection, but in learning to enjoy its beauty while it lasts. Thus, in this part of our journey, we are reminded that proximity does not guarantee peace, and presence does not guarantee fulfillment. The true shift begins when we no longer confuse temporary joy with lasting happiness. And so, as we hold this insight, we prepare to explore the deeper weight of expectations in the next step of our path. When the sweetness of closeness begins to fade, the heart rarely chooses silence. Instead, it begins to demand, whispering, "They owe me for all I have given." This is how fading joy turns into silent suffering. And with that, we come to the next part of today's journey, the burden of expectations. When closeness no longer provides the constant joy once imagined, another thought often arises. After all I have given, is it not their duty to care for me now? This feeling is natural. Parents spend their lives sacrificing, nurturing, and building a foundation for their children. And in old age, it feels almost like a contract waiting to be honored. Yet Zen asks us to pause and see, when love becomes a transaction, does it not lose its purity? The truth is, the more we expect, the more fragile our peace becomes. Each unmet expectation turns into disappointment, and each disappointment piles into resentment. Slowly the heart hardens, whispering, "They have failed me." But have they failed, or have we simply demanded what they could not give? In Zen teachings, attachment is not only to people, but also to ideas. The belief that children must repay us with attention is one such attachment. And like every attachment, it binds us, tightens us, and creates suffering when reality does not align with our inner script. There is a well-known Zen image, a man carrying water in a cracked pot. No matter how much he fills it, the water leaks out. In the same way, when we try to fill our lives with the approval and attention of others, our peace seeps away. We pour and pour, but the vessel of expectation cannot hold happiness. This is why Zen wisdom emphasizes turning inward. In a dream or a quiet meditation, the master's voice may whisper, "You suffer not because they neglect you, but because you cling to what they cannot provide." True peace does not come from others, it comes from within. Let us consider this deeply. How many of our own disappointments in life stem not from what people did, but from what we expected them to do? A friend forgets to call, a partner does not notice our struggle, a child becomes absorbed in their own world. The pain is real, yes, but its root is expectation. The invitation of Buddhism here is not to abandon relationships or deny our feelings. Rather, it is to free them from the weight of demand. Love without expectation becomes lighter, freer, and paradoxically, more abundant. When we stop insisting that others must carry the burden of our happiness, we discover the strength to carry it ourselves. So in this step of our journey, let us remember, expectation may feel like a right, but it often becomes a chain. The path of wisdom is to release that chain and realize that happiness rooted in inner peace can never be taken away. And with this understanding, we prepare to step into the next reflection, the awakening that comes from recognizing attachment itself. Resentment grows when expectations are not met, but the deeper truth emerges when we look inward. The pain does not come from our children's actions. It comes from the attachment to the belief that they must be the source of our happiness. And so, as disappointment ripens into understanding, we arrive at the next part of today's journey, recognizing the nature of attachment. In Buddhist wisdom, clinging is like trying to hold water in your fists. The tighter you grasp, the faster it slips away. When parents insist, even silently, that children must complete them, they create a prison for both. The elder feels abandoned and the children feel burdened. The cycle of suffering continues, not because of a lack of love, but because of the invisible chains of expectation. The Buddha's words remind us, nothing is truly yours. Not even your children, they too have their own path. This teaching is not cold or dismissive. Rather, it is profoundly liberating. To see that children are not possessions, but fellow travelers on life's journey, frees both parent and child from the weight of ownership. Think of a bird released from a cage. At first, the cage seemed like care, protection, even love. But only when the bird is free does it reveal its true nature, its ability to soar. In the same way, when we release our grip on the idea that children must fulfill us, we discover their beauty more fully and our own peace more deeply. Attachment often hides beneath noble words. We say, "I only want what's best for them," or "I gave them everything, so I deserve something in return." Yet beneath these words there is a quiet clinging, the belief that life owes us certain outcomes. Zen asks, but does life owe us anything? Or are all things simply passing gifts, given for a time, never meant to be kept forever? To recognize attachment is not to condemn ourselves, but to awaken. In that awakening, we see the truth. Children, spouses, even friends are mirrors, not anchors. They reflect our own state of mind. If we are restless within, their distance feels like rejection. If we are at peace within, even brief moments with them shine as treasures. This recognition marks a turning point. No longer trapped in the illusion that happiness must come from others, we begin to sense the quiet strength of inner freedom. And as this insight deepens, we prepare to explore the next stage of our journey. How letting go transforms suffering into liberation. As we reflected in the last part, suffering arises when we cling to the belief that our children must complete us. Yet clinging does not stop at expectation. It often deepens into dependence. And so we come to the next part of today's journey, the danger of emotional dependence. At first, dependence feels like comfort. When children call, visit, or show affection, the elder feels alive and validated. But when life draws them away, when responsibilities take their time and energy elsewhere, the silence begins to feel like abandonment. What once felt like love now becomes a craving, and the craving becomes pain. In this way, dependence slowly turns into a hidden prison. Zen teachings remind us, true strength is not built by leaning on others, but by cultivating resilience within ourselves. There is an old parable of a man carrying a heavy sack of rice. The burden seemed unbearable, and he longed for someone to carry it for him. Yet when help was offered, he refused, saying, "If I do not carry this weight myself, I will never grow strong enough to walk the path on my own." This image reveals a profound truth. Life's burdens, though heavy, are also the training ground for our spirit. When we place those burdens entirely on our children, we deny ourselves the very strength that old age can offer, the strength of patience, acceptance, and inner peace. To depend fully on others is to weaken the muscles of the heart. This is not to say we should reject love or help. Connection is part of life, and receiving support is natural. But dependence crosses an invisible line. It shifts from gratitude to demand, from appreciation to entitlement. The moment we believe our happiness depends solely on another's presence, we give away the keys to our freedom. Buddhism teaches that aging is not only a decline, but also an opportunity. Just as youth is a time to build the body, old age is a time to build the spirit. If we use this stage to strengthen our inner endurance, then solitude no longer feels like abandonment. It becomes a space of self-discovery. So let us pause and ask, are we leaning on our children out of love or clinging to them out of fear? The difference is vital. Love allows them to come and go freely. Fear chains them to our needs and makes both sides suffer. The danger of dependence is not only the risk of disappointment, but also the loss of our own power. But when we face the weight of life with courage, we discover that even in old age, the spirit can still grow strong. And with this insight, we prepare to move toward the next part of our journey, the path of cultivating inner peace. As we reflected on the inner path to peace, there is a natural next step. When we no longer rely on others for our happiness, a quiet lightness begins to appear. And so, we come to the next part of today's journey, freedom in letting go. Letting go is often misunderstood. Many fear it means abandoning love or detaching from family bonds. But in the wisdom of Zen, letting go is not about rejection. It is about releasing the weight of clinging. It is choosing not to chain our peace to another's behavior. When this shift happens, both sides begin to breathe more freely. Parents who release their grip on expectation discover a new kind of joy. No longer measuring love by how often children visit, they find gratitude in whatever time is shared. And when children sense this freedom, their presence is no longer pressured by duty, but offered from love. A simple visit, a call, a smile. These gestures become more authentic because they are no longer demanded, only given. The relationship itself transforms. What once carried the heaviness of unspoken obligations becomes lighter, warmer, and more genuine. Love, freed from the cage of demand, takes flight. It is no longer, "I must, but I want to." This is the freedom both parent and child long for, though often without realizing it. Zen masters often use the image of unclenching a fist. When the hand is tight, nothing new can enter, and what is held eventually slips away. But when the hand opens, it is free to both give and receive. Letting go works the same way. In the space of release, deeper connection naturally flows. This lesson extends far beyond family. How many times in our lives have we tightened our grip on relationships, careers, possessions, only to feel them slipping away faster? And how many times have we discovered that surrender, though frightening, was the doorway to peace? Letting go is not weakness. It is courage. It is trusting that love, when freed, will return in its truest form. Thus, in this stage of our journey, we see that letting go does not end relationships, it transforms them. By releasing the demand that others be our source of peace, we allow them to love us freely, and we rediscover the strength of loving without chains. And with this insight, we prepare to move toward the next reflection, the impermanence that shapes every bond and every season of life. When freedom arises from letting go, there is still one truth that must be faced. Nothing remains the same. Every role, every relationship, every season of life changes. And so, we come to the next part of today's journey, the lesson of impermanence. The Buddha once said, "All conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with diligence." This teaching is not just philosophy, it is a mirror held to our daily lives. The role of parent, once defined by nurturing, guiding, and protecting, inevitably shifts. Children grow into their own responsibilities. They create families, pursue careers, and walk their own paths. To cling to the past image of being needed is to fight against the natural current of life. Impermanence can feel like loss, but it is also the essence of freedom. Just as autumn leaves fall to make space for spring blossoms, life asks us to release what has ended so something new can unfold. When parents cling to the past, longing for the days when children depended on them, the heart grows heavy. But when they accept impermanence, they find peace in witnessing their children's independence as a natural evolution, not a betrayal. Zen wisdom reminds us, clinging to what was only deepens suffering. Memory can be beautiful, but when we refuse to release it, it becomes a chain. The truth is, the past cannot be held. It can only be honored. To live in constant longing for what used to be is to miss the beauty of what is. Impermanence teaches us not only about family roles, but about life itself. Our youth, our health, our possessions, all are passing. The awareness of impermanence is not meant to create despair, but to awaken gratitude. When we know that nothing lasts forever, every moment becomes precious. A simple smile, a short visit, even a quiet evening alone can be appreciated fully because we understand its fleeting nature. The invitation of this teaching is to stop clinging and start embracing, to see the truth of change not as an enemy, but as the very rhythm of life. In this light, impermanence is not loss, it is transformation. It is the gentle reminder that nothing belongs to us, not even the roles we once cherished. Thus, in this stage of our journey, we learn that peace comes not from holding on, but from flowing with change. By embracing impermanence, we no longer resist life's shifting seasons. Instead, we find freedom in moving with them. And with this understanding, we prepare to explore the joy of solitude and the strength it brings to the heart. From the wisdom of impermanence, a new doorway opens. Once we accept that change is inevitable, we no longer resist being alone. Instead, we begin to discover the quiet treasures of solitude. And so, we come to the next part of today's journey, finding joy in stillness. There is a profound difference between loneliness and stillness. Loneliness is a craving. It whispers, "I need someone else to make me whole." Stillness, however, is a presence. It says, "I am already whole within myself." Loneliness feeds on absence, while stillness blossoms from presence. In the light of Zen, solitude is not an empty space but a sacred one. It is the soil where peace takes root. When we learn to sit with ourselves without distractions, without the need for constant company, we discover that life is already full. The morning tea, the tending of a small garden, the simple act of sitting in meditation, or the gentle chorus of birds, these are no longer fillers of empty time. They become the very essence of joy. This shift transforms the way we relate to others. When we no longer cling to our children for survival, their visits are no longer weighed down by need. Instead, they become gifts, sweet surprises rather than obligations. A short call, a shared meal, or even a smile feels abundant because we are not waiting for it to complete us. Zen masters often remind us, when you are enough within yourself, others are free to love you without fear. This is the freedom of stillness. In solitude, we meet ourselves deeply. We see that peace does not depend on noise, activity, or even relationships. Peace comes from being fully present with what is. It is in these moments of stillness that we learn to savor life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Each breath becomes a teacher, Each sip of tea is a meditation. Each quiet moment reminds us that we do not need more to feel whole. We only need to awaken to what is already here. Thus, in this stage of the journey, we discover that stillness is not isolation, but intimacy with life itself. Loneliness fades when we stop grasping for company and start embracing the richness of presence. And with this realization, we are ready to move forward into the wisdom of non-attachment, the next step that deepens our freedom even further. From the joy of stillness, another realization emerges. Suffering does not come from what others do or do not do. It comes from our own clinging. And so, we come to the next part of today's journey, the wisdom of non-attachment. It is easy to believe that the pain of aging is caused by children not visiting enough, not calling, or not showing care. But when we look deeper, Zen reveals a different truth. The pain is born from the belief that they must care for us. This must is the chain, and the tighter we hold it, the heavier it becomes. When the grip of attachment loosens, something remarkable happens. Disappointment fades, resentment softens, and even anger dissolves. We stop demanding life to be different and start meeting it as it is. This is not resignation, it is liberation. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean we stop loving or that we push people away. Instead, it means we love without trying to possess. We care without insisting on control. We allow others to walk their path while we honor our own. In this space, love becomes lighter, purer, and more enduring. The Buddha taught that clinging is like tying a rope around our own heart. Every expectation is another knot. Every demand tightens it. And yet, the moment we release the rope, we feel the heart expand. This is the gift of non-attachment, a love that no longer suffocates but breathes freely. Life is impermanent. Roles change, seasons shift, and nothing remains fixed. To fight this truth is to exhaust ourselves. To flow with it is to awaken. Non-attachment is simply learning to live in harmony with impermanence. It is choosing to see change not as loss, but as the natural rhythm of life. Think of a river. When we try to hold the water, it slips through our fingers. But when we open our hands and let it flow, we feel its coolness, its presence, its gift. In the same way, when we stop clinging to how we think things should be, we finally experience the beauty of how things actually are. Thus, the wisdom of non-attachment frees both parent and child. No one feels pressured, no one feels chained. Instead, there is space for authentic connection, rooted not in obligation, but in love. And with this insight, we prepare to take the final step of our journey, breaking the cycle of karma through forgiveness. From the wisdom of non-attachment, a new horizon opens. Once the knots of clinging are untied, we begin to see life not as a straight line, but as a circle, each phase leading naturally into the next. And so we come to the next part of today's journey, the circle of life. In Zen and Buddhist wisdom, life is described as a flow of cycles: birth, growth, decline, and passing. Nothing escapes this rhythm, not even the roles we once thought defined us. The role of parent, for instance, does not last forever. There comes a time when children no longer need guidance in the same way, and in that moment, a new cycle begins. Not of giving outwardly, but of turning inward to nurture oneself. This transition can feel unsettling if we cling to identity. A father or mother may feel they are less when their children no longer rely on them. Yet Zen reminds us, you are not your role. You are the awareness behind it, the consciousness that flows through every stage of life. Roles change, but the essence of who you are remains. To embrace the circle of life is to see endings not as failures, but as openings. Just as spring leads to summer and summer to autumn, each stage holds its own beauty. Parenthood may shift, but life now offers a new invitation to deepen one's wisdom, to care for one's spirit, to live not for titles, but for presence. Buddhist teachings often compare life to the moon. It waxes and wanes, appearing full, then fading into shadow, yet always whole. Likewise, we may step through many identities: child, parent, worker, elder. But beneath them all is the same luminous awareness. When we stop clinging to roles, we rediscover that awareness and rest in it. This freedom allows us to walk with lightness. No longer chained to status or duty, we continue our journey with calm acceptance. To say my role has ended is not a loss, but a liberation. It is the chance to step into a cycle of being rather than doing. Thus, the circle of life is not something to fear, but something to honor. Each stage prepares the ground for the next. The end of one identity marks the birth of another. When we live with this understanding, there is no need to cling, no need to resist. There is only the quiet grace of walking forward, moment by moment, with peace. From the circle of life arises the final gift, not a possession to hold, but a light to pass on. And so, we come to the next part of today's journey, the lamp of peace left behind. When the fire of attachment dies down, what remains is a gentle glow of serenity. Relationships soften, love becomes effortless, and even the closing chapter of life is no longer feared. Instead of leaving behind wealth or titles, what endures is the memory of a presence that radiated peace. Children may forget specific words, but they will never forget how the air felt in the presence of a parent who was calm and free. They will carry that atmosphere within them, the patience, the gentleness, the ability to love without demanding. This is the inheritance that outlives material things, a living example of peace. Buddhism teaches that the greatest legacy is not gold or land, but the seed of wisdom sown in the hearts of others. When elders embody peace, they silently show the younger generation that happiness does not come from control or clinging, but from resting deeply in one's own heart. That lesson, lived rather than spoken, becomes a guiding light for those who remain. At the end of the journey, death itself feels less like an ending and more like a quiet dusk. There is no desperation to hold on, no resistance against impermanence, only a soft surrender, like the evening sky giving way to stars. The message left is clear. In old age, true happiness is not found by holding children close, but by holding peace within. The inheritance of calmness, presence, and wisdom becomes a gift not just for the family, but for all who were touched by that presence. This is the lamp of peace, a flame that does not die but continues to illuminate the path for generations to come. As we complete this journey, one truth shines through every story, every lesson. Who we are in the final chapter of life matters more than what we leave behind. Wealth fades, roles change, bodies weaken, but the state of our heart, the peace we embody, becomes the true inheritance we pass on. The teachings of Zen and Buddhism remind us that attachment breeds suffering, while release brings freedom. We marry not just partners but karma. We raise children, but they are not ours to keep. We age, but aging itself is not the enemy. It is the invitation to deepen wisdom. Each stage of life, when lived with awareness, becomes a mirror showing us where we still cling and where we are free. In the end, peace is the greatest legacy. To die without bitterness, to live without chains, to love without demand. This is the real victory. Imagine leaving behind not fear, not regret, but an atmosphere of calm so deep that even those who grieve feel comforted in your memory. That is the inheritance of awakening. So let us reflect. What will be your legacy? Will it be anger, resentment, and control? Or will it be serenity, compassion, and presence? The choice is not made at the end of life. It is made in every breath, every thought, every act of letting go, starting now. As you watch this, I invite you to pause. Place your hand on your heart. Feel your own presence. This is where peace begins. Not in your children, not in possessions, not in achievements, but here, within. When you awaken to this truth, you no longer fear change, loss, or even death. You become a lamp of peace for the world. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you. Share your reflections in the comments. Tell us, what is one attachment you are ready to release today? And if you wish to continue this path of wisdom and healing, remember to subscribe, so each week you can walk deeper into the Dharma with us. Because in the end, life is not about how tightly we hold on, but about how gracefully we let go. And in that letting go, we discover a peace that no one can take away.